I see you, my child. I see exactly how heavy the air feels in your lungs right now, how your shoulders ache from the invisible crushing weight you have been desperately trying to hold together for far too long. You are completely exhausted. It is a profound, bone-deep weariness that a simple night of sleep can no longer cure, because the exhaustion you are carrying is not just physical. It is a heavy, relentless burden, pressing down on your very spirit, draining the color and the joy out of your days. You have been walking through this incredibly difficult season with your head down, pushing through the daily resistance, convincing yourself that if you just try a little harder, if you just hold on a little longer, you can somehow force the fractured pieces of your world back into their proper place. But I know the unfiltered truth of what happens when you are finally alone. I watch you when the doors are closed, when the quietness of the empty room amplifies the frantic racing of your heart, and the brave mask of strength you wear for everyone else finally slips away. I have sat right beside you during those long, agonizing hours of the night when the rest of the world is deeply asleep, but your mind is violently awake. I know all about the restless tossing and turning, the dark ceiling you have stared at for hours, while your anxious thoughts spin in endless, terrifying circles. I see the silent tears that soak into your pillow, the ones you quickly wipe away in the dark, because you feel you do not even have the time, the energy, or the luxury to fully break down. You are carrying a weight that was never ever meant for your fragile human shoulders. It is a burden so immensely heavy and incredibly complex that it is actively crushing your capacity to breathe freely, stealing your peace and blinding you to the beauty of the present moment. You have been functioning in survival mode for so long that you have almost completely forgotten what it feels like to live in a state of true, uninterrupted peace. I know the specific crippling fears that wake you up with a tight chest and a feeling of impending doom. I know the daily anxiety about tomorrow, the heavy dread of the unknown, and the terrifying worst-case scenarios your mind constructs when you look toward a future that currently feels utterly unsecured and terribly bleak. You are dealing with very real, very heavy problems. Perhaps it is a sudden financial hardship that violently threatens your sense of security, a deep family conflict that has completely shattered your domestic peace, a devastating health crisis, or a profound fear of failure that paralyzes your every step. I see the deep, aching loneliness of feeling like you are fighting this brutal battle entirely on your own. Even when you are walking through a crowded room or sitting in a house full of people, you bravely force a smile, you politely answer their casual questions, and you tell them that everything is fine. But inside, your heart is weeping. You feel completely isolated, utterly convinced that no one on earth could possibly understand the overwhelming pressure you are operating under, or the silent battles you are fighting just to make it through a single afternoon. You have tried everything in your limited human power to fix this deeply broken situation. I have watched you exhaust your mind and your body, trying to manipulate the outcomes, desperately trying to protect the people you deeply love from the painful fallout of this unexpected storm. You have carefully planned, you have frantically strategized, and you have desperately calculated every possible move, trying to find a clever way to pull your life out of this sinking sand. You have read the books you have sought, the advice, and you have burned yourself out, trying to be the ultimate provider, protector, and savior of your own life. But the harder you pull at the problems, the tighter the knots seem to become. You are frantically pulling at frayed threads in the dark, hoping to unravel the complicated mess, only to find that your panicked efforts have somehow made the situation even more stubbornly tangled. The circumstances have absolutely refused to bow to your human strength, and that harsh realization has left you feeling completely defeated, incredibly small, and utterly helpless. You are terrified right now because you realize You have finally reached the absolute end of your own capability, and the massive mountain standing right in front of you has not moved a single inch. My precious child, I need you to stop fighting for just a moment. Quiet your racing mind and listen to the sound of my voice, speaking directly to your weary spirit. I am intentionally stepping into your mess, right this very minute, to bring you the profound comfort and the supernatural encouragement you so desperately need during this immense hardship. You do not have to hide your failures from me. You are fully seen exactly as you are, entirely without judgment. You are deeply, unconditionally loved, and absolutely nothing about your current struggle, your doubts, or your mistakes has caused me to turn my face away from you. I am not looking at you from heaven with disappointment, because you could not figure this complicated situation out on your own. I do not stand over you with a harsh posture of judgment, because your faith has recently felt weak, or because creeping doubt has heavily clouded your spiritual vision. I am looking at you right now with the infinite, boundless compassion of a loving father who deeply cares for his hurting child. A father who sees you struggling under a crushing load you were never designed or asked to carry. Your painful, exhausting burden ends here. The relentless, draining demand to hold the entire universe together with your own 2 hands is officially over. I am gently, but firmly, taking this heavy, tangled, chaotic mess out of your blistering hands. You absolutely do not have to pretend to be strong anymore. You do not have to put on a brave face. You do not have to hold back the heavy flood of your buried emotions. And you do not have to constantly apologize for the absolute mess you feel your life has become. I want all of it. Your deep-seated fear, your boiling frustration, your lingering disappointment, your quiet shame, and your profound, echoing loneliness. Bring every single shattered piece of your heart and lay it securely at my feet. I am warmly inviting you to finally exhale. Let the heavy, anxious breath you have been holding tightly in your chest release completely into the absolute safety of my divine presence. Let your rigid, tense shoulders drop. Lean all of your heavy, aching weight back against my unshakable strength. Let my perfect peace, which completely and entirely surpasses all human understanding, wrap around your weary, battered heart like a warm, fiercely protective shield. You are safe here in my arms. You are protected here in my presence. The storm may still be raging violently around you. The winds may still be howling loudly outside your window, and the circumstances may not have perfectly aligned just yet. But you are no longer standing out in the rain alone. I am your shelter. I am your high tower, and I am the ultimate restorer of your weary soul. Just listen to my voice. Take a slow, deep breath, and let my overwhelming, unconditional love wash away the heavy residue of your intense exhaustion. This is the beautiful, quiet moment where the heavy carrying finally stops. But I know how deeply ingrained your daily habit of striving has become. Your anxious mind is likely still racing in the background, still trying to figure out exactly how I will untangle this impossibly tight situation, still desperately trying to hold on to the fragile illusion of control that has secretly been keeping you a prisoner to your own anxiety. You have spent years, perhaps even decades, constructing this heavy defense mechanism, believing that if you can just anticipate every single possibility, you can somehow prevent the pain. You sit there even now, listening to my voice, yet a part of your brain is still relentlessly mapping out contingencies. You are calculating the odds, weighing the risks, and trying to predict the unpredictable. You lie awake imagining conversations that haven't happened, rehearsing your responses, and trying to build safety nets out of sheer imagination. My child, your mind has been racing with endless scenarios, trying to calculate the perfect solution to an impossible equation. You have treated this season of your life like a massive, complex puzzle that solely relies on your intellect to be solved. You think that if you just gather enough information, if you just read one more article, If you just ask the right person, the answer will suddenly appear, and you can execute the perfect rescue mission. But I need you to understand something vital right now. This situation requires divine intervention, not human perfection. You cannot outthink this storm. You cannot outwork this valley. The knots you are staring at were not designed to be unraveled by your logic, your intelligence, or your sheer willpower. Every time you try to pull the strings with your own understanding, every time you try to force a door open that I have gently closed, the friction only creates a tighter, more painful bind. You see, the human desire to fix every problem is born from a place of deep, unacknowledged fear. It is a desperate grasping for stability in a world that currently feels incredibly unstable. But that very desire to control is what is keeping you trapped in a cycle of perpetual exhaustion. You are attempting to do a job that was never assigned to your name. Let us look together gently and honestly at what is truly underneath this desperate, exhausting need to control everything around you. It is not just about the external circumstances themselves. It is about the deep-seated fear of failure that has quietly haunted you for so long. You have carried this silent, heavy belief that if things fall apart under your watch, it is ultimately a reflection of your own inadequacy. You are terrified of letting people down. You are terrified of looking foolish or incompetent in front of those who are watching you. You are terrified of the raw, uncomfortable vulnerability that comes when you are forced to admit that you simply do not have what it takes to save the day. And woven right alongside that creeping fear is a subtle, quiet pride that keeps your hands tightly gripping the steering wheel of your life. This pride does not look like arrogance. It looks like responsibility. It masquerades as duty. It whispers convincingly that you are the only one who can protect your future, that if you let go for even a single second, everything you have worked so hard to build will violently crash to the ground. But look at your hands, my child. Look at how your knuckles are white from gripping so tightly for so long. Look at how the steering wheel you refuse to release is actually driving you deeper into anxiety, isolation, and despair. This illusion of control is the heaviest burden of all, because it demands that you constantly play the role of God in your own life. It demands that you perfectly foresee the future, carefully manage every shifting variable, and flawlessly execute every step. That is not just an impossible standard. It is a spiritual danger that slowly suffocates your soul, drains your emotional reserves, and completely robs you of your peace. Self-reliance is constantly praised by the fast-paced world you live in. The culture around you demands that you pull yourself up, hustle harder, take absolute charge of your destiny, and never let anyone see you sweat. But in my kingdom, self-reliance is the very thing that builds a thick, impenetrable wall between your weary heart and my abundant grace. When you stubbornly insist on being the savior of your own story, you leave absolutely no room for my miraculous provision to enter the scene. Your bone-deep exhaustion is the direct, unavoidable result of carrying a massive responsibility that belongs entirely to me. You are trying to act as the ultimate architect of a building for which you do not even hold the blueprints. I am the creator. I am the divine architect. I know the end from the beginning, and I alone hold the master plan for your life. The intense anxiety that wakes you up at 3 a.m, making it hard to breathe, is simply the painful friction of a limited human soul trying to carry an unlimited divine weight. It is the jarring, uncomfortable reality that you were created to be entirely dependent on me, yet you are frantically striving to be completely independent. I am gently correcting your posture today, not out of frustration or anger, but out of a profound, fiercely protective love. I see what this striving is doing to your body, your mind, and your relationships, and I am stepping in to call a halt to this exhausting cycle. I want you to see that your absolute inability to fix this current problem is not a personal failure at all. It is not a sign that you are weak, broken, or unworthy. It is in fact a magnificent divine setup for my grace to flood into your life in a way you have never experienced before. When you finally reach the very end of your own strength, you are finally standing at the very beginning of mine. The massive wall you have hit, the confusing dead end you are currently staring at. These are not punishments for your past mistakes. They are wholly intentional invitations to stop running. I allow you to reach these painful places of total powerlessness so that the dangerous illusion of control can finally be shattered, leaving you completely free to experience the vastness of my capability. You have viewed your helplessness as a terrifying tragedy, a sign that everything is slipping through your fingers. But I view your helplessness as the exact moment your true spiritual growth actually begins. When you can do absolutely nothing, you are finally positioned to step back and watch me do everything. True safety. My precious child is never, ever found in your ability to control the outcome. It is never found in a perfectly balanced bank account, a flawless medical report, a smoothly running career, or a perfectly managed household. All of those things are temporary and can change in the blink of an eye. True, unshakable, eternal safety is found only in trusting the perfect character of the Creator, who holds your very breath in His hands. It is resting in the absolute concrete certainty that I am entirely good, that I love you fiercely, and that I have never once lost control of the universe or of the specific detailed intricacies of your life. I want to replace your frantic, exhausting calculations with a quiet, steady confidence. I want to trade your heavy, self-imposed burden of management for the light, beautiful yoke of simple, childlike trust. I know that letting go of the steering wheel feels like stepping off a cliff in the dark. Your mind protests, screaming that if you stop managing every detail, everything will fall to pieces. But I am asking you to gently test my faithfulness right here, in the middle of this very storm. I am asking you to consciously loosen your grip one finger at a time and watch what happens when you stop trying to hold the world together. The anxiety that plagues you is merely the symptom. The desperate need for control is the root disease. And today, I am gently applying the healing balm of truth to that root. You do not have to be the manager of the universe. You are a beloved child, and children are not expected to pay the bills, secure the borders, or navigate the storms. They are simply expected to trust their father's hand. As you sit here letting these words sink into the deepest parts of your weary soul, I want you to give yourself permission to be exactly what you are, human. Fragile, limited, and entirely dependent on my limitless grace. The moment you accept your inability to fix this, you open the floodgates for my miraculous intervention. The pressure is off. My child, the exhausting performance is over. You can finally step down from the heavy podium of self-reliance and step into the vast, open space of my perfect provision. You are beginning to recognize that true safety is not found in controlling the outcome of your circumstances, but in trusting the Creator, who holds your entire future securely in His hands. As you begin to look at this heavy situation through the lens of my sovereignty, rather than your own capability, I want to gently draw your attention deeper into the very mess you have been trying so desperately to fix. When you look at your life right now, you see the immediate agonizing crisis staring you in the face. You see the glaring visible problems, the sudden financial hardship that makes you hold your breath when you check the mail, the deeply broken relationship that has left a painful silence in your home, the devastating career setback that bruised your confidence, or the terrifying medical report that shifted the ground beneath your feet. To your limited human eyes, these surface issues are the entirety of the knot. You believe that if I would just miraculously deposit the money, instantly change that person's mind, or immediately open that specific door, all of your intense anxiety would instantly evaporate, and your heart would finally be at peace. But I see so much further beneath the surface of your circumstances. The exhaustion you feel deep in your bones is not merely the result of this current present-day storm. The reason this specific crisis has completely overwhelmed you, the reason it feels like you are violently drowning, rather than simply treading water, is because this new problem has snagged on a much older, deeper web of hidden pain within your soul. You are looking entirely at the immediate symptoms, but I am carefully examining the complex and visible architecture of your spiritual and emotional life. My child, you are trying to cut a surface thread, but I am working to untangle the root. You have been frantically trying to pull apart the visible circumstances, completely unaware that the tightest, most restrictive knots are actually located deep within your own heart, hidden safely away in places you have been entirely too terrified to explore. Let me shine a gentle, warm light on the fragile parts of your soul you keep carefully hidden in the dark, even from yourself. I see the heavy generational burdens you are unknowingly carrying upon your weary shoulders. I see the deep ingrained patterns of intense fear, relentless striving, and painful survival mode that were silently handed down to you by those who came before you in your family line. You have inherited a rigid posture of defensive living, constantly bracing for the next unpredictable disaster, because that is all you have ever witnessed or been taught. Your ancestors carried the heavy weight of scarcity, the terrifying fear of not having enough, and the exhausting belief that resting was somehow dangerous. Without even realizing it, you have absorbed that same anxious rhythm into your own bloodstream. When this current crisis hit, it triggered a generational alarm bell inside of you, convincing you that you are entirely unprotected and destined to repeat the painful cycles of your past. But I am stepping in to completely sever that generational thread. I also see the deep unspoken insecurities that silently dictate so many of your daily decisions. I know all about the quiet, destructive lies you have believed about your own worth for years. These are the toxic, relentless whispers that tell you that you are fundamentally not enough, that you are a burden to those around you, that you are unlovable in your brokenness, or that you are entirely responsible for keeping everyone else happy and perfectly comfortable. You have spent your entire life aggressively performing for love, carefully curating a version of yourself that you believe is acceptable to the world. You constantly wear a heavy mask of competence, terrified that if anyone truly saw your weakness, they would instantly walk away. I was right there with you in the vulnerable moments of your childhood when those painful lies first took root in your mind. I saw the specific moments of rejection that planted the seeds of your current anxiety. I see the past traumas that you sincerely thought you had simply outgrown or successfully pushed past. You bravely bandaged over those deep, agonizing wounds, covered them with a brave smile, and kept putting one foot in front of the other because the world selfishly demanded your ongoing participation. But I know that those wounds never properly, fully healed. They have secretly bled into your current relationships, heavily colored your daily perspective, and severely limited your ability to truly trust both me and the people around you. You have been walking with a profound spiritual limp for so long that you have completely convinced yourself it is just your normal stride. When this new, unexpected crisis hit your life, it did not just break new ground. It violently reopened those old, fragile fractures. That is exactly why the emotional pain you are feeling right now is so disproportionately heavy and entirely overwhelming. You are not just weeping over today's specific loss. You are weeping over years of unacknowledged grief, hidden disappointment, and silent heartbreak that have all tangled themselves together into this one massive, suffocating knot. I validate the intense, overwhelming ache in your chest right now. I know there are deep, complicated pains inside of you that you do not even have the vocabulary to voice to yourself, let alone to anyone else. You have swallowed so much sorrow, bearing it under the heavy demands of daily life, desperately hoping it would just quietly dissolve over time. But I see every single tear you have ever hidden. I see every moment you felt completely invisible, utterly misunderstood, and profoundly rejected. I understand the true sprawling complexity of your current situation infinitely better than you do, because I see the entire intricate tapestry of your emotional history, because my vision is absolutely perfect. My approach to your healing must be entirely comprehensive. If I were to simply reach down and instantly fix the surface problem just to give you temporary relief, I would be doing you a profound disservice. If I just miraculously refilled the bank account without untangling the deep root of your financial fear, the very next unexpected expense would send you spiraling right back into this exact same suffocating panic. If I simply restored the broken relationship without carefully untangling your deep-seated fear of abandonment, the relationship would inevitably fracture again under the unbearable weight of your unhealed insecurity. A quick superficial fix is what your exhausted mind desperately wants, but absolute, permanent spiritual freedom and complete emotional healing are what your Heavenly Father is determined to give you. This is exactly why the untangling process feels so agonizingly slow to you, and why it requires so much more from you than just waiting for a sudden change in your external circumstances. I am actively performing deep, intricate divine surgery on the most fragile parts of your soul. I am carefully tracing every tangled thread of your present anxiety all the way back to its original source. As you realize the breathtaking scope of what I am actually doing beneath the surface of your life, I want you to feel a profound sense of relief washing over you. You do not have to possess the psychological insight or the spiritual stamina to untangle your own heart. I know exactly where the knots are, and I know precisely which thread to pull first. Now that you see that I am working on the deepest, most hidden roots of your pain, you are standing at the threshold of a monumental decision. To allow me to complete this profound, lasting work, you must be willing to let go of the surface threads you are still so desperately clutching. I am giving you a clear, lovingly firm command today. It is time to lay this massive burden down at my feet. I know exactly how counterintuitive this feels to your weary mind. Everything within your human nature is screaming at you to hold on tighter, to brace yourself for impact, and to maintain absolute control at all costs. You have been taught by a harsh, demanding world that dropping your guard means you will be struck, that yielding means you have lost the battle, and that surrender is the ultimate admission of failure. The enemy whispers constantly in your ear, trying to convince you that if you stop striving, you are being irresponsible and careless with your future. But my kingdom does not operate according to the frantic, fear-based rules of this world. In my kingdom, surrender is not a white flag of defeat. It is the ultimate triumphant act of faith. It is the magnificent threshold you must cross to experience profound inner peace. I want to walk you through this terrifying but completely liberating process right now. I am asking you to look down at your spiritual hands. They are clenched so tightly into fists, white-knuckled and trembling from the sheer force of trying to hold your fragile world together. I am gently placing my hands over yours, and I am asking you to slowly, intentionally open your fingers. I understand the terrifying vulnerability of this moment. I know exactly how hard it is for you to trust anyone with the most fragile pieces of your life because you have been profoundly disappointed in the past. You have opened your hands to people who promised to protect your heart only to watch them carelessly drop what you entrusted to them. You have relied on systems, on friends, on family members, and on your own careful planning. And they have all at one point or another fractured under the pressure. Because of those deep, unhealed wounds, your immediate instinct is to build a fortress of self-protection. You believe that if you just manage every variable, no one will ever be able to hurt you or catch you off guard again. But I am not a fragile human being who will buckle under the weight of your crisis. I am not a flawed system that will fail you when the variables suddenly change. I am the creator of the universe, and my character is entirely composed of perfect grace, infinite mercy, and unwavering faithfulness. You can lean your entire weight upon me, and I will not shift. I will not abandon you when the situation becomes complicated, and I will never grow tired of carrying what is too heavy for you. To experience this unshakable support, you must let go completely. You must let go of the specific, overwhelming situation that is keeping you awake at night. You must let go of the person you have been desperately trying to fix. I see the agony in your heart as you watch someone you love deeply struggle with their own brokenness, but you must recognize that you do not possess the power to change another human heart. Only my Spirit can do that profound work. You must let go of the exact detailed outcome you have meticulously scripted in your mind. Your vision is severely limited by your current pain, but my vision spans eternity. And perhaps most difficult of all, you must release the rigid, demanding timeline you have tried to force me to follow. You want the resolution today, but I am asking you to trust my perfect sovereign timing. This kind of total reliance on God is not a passive, helpless resignation where you simply give up on life. Spiritual surrender is an active, fierce, and incredibly courageous daily choice. It is waking up in the morning feeling the familiar heavy blanket of dread trying to settle over your chest, and making the conscious, deliberate decision to say, "No, I have given this to my Father, and I will not take it back." It is the brave act of stopping the frantic pacing in your hallway, silencing the endless, chaotic calculations in your mind, and choosing to sit quietly in my presence instead. It is an hour-by-hour, sometimes minute-by-minute discipline of redirecting your focus from the massive, intimidating size of your problem to the infinite, majestic size of your God. When the familiar urge to meddle, to fix, and to aggressively control rises up in your throat, surrender is the deep, steadying breath you take as you intentionally step back and allow me to work. It requires a profound level of spiritual maturity to stand still when everything inside of you is screaming to run and fix the mess. I know your greatest fear is that if you truly let go, the situation will completely shatter into a million unrecoverable pieces. You are terrified that without your constant, exhausting vigilance, the absolute worst-case scenario will instantly become your reality. You believe your worrying is somehow keeping the disaster at bay, but I make you this unbreakable divine promise today. Whatever you willingly place into my capable hands will never be destroyed. It may not look exactly the way you originally planned. It may be carefully reshaped to serve a higher purpose, and it may be purified to remove what is harmful. But it is infinitely safer in my sovereign grip than it ever was in your frantic grasp. When you finally release your vice-like grip on your life, you are not dropping your fragile circumstances into a dark, chaotic void. You are placing them directly into the loving, scarred palms of the one who holds the stars in place and calls them each by name. I am intimately acquainted with every detail of your struggle, and I am fiercely protective of the trust you place in me. I am asking you to trust me more than you trust your own limited ability to manage this crisis. This is the exact moment where your faith must transition from a beautiful, comforting concept you hear about on Sunday into a living, breathing reality that securely anchors your soul on a chaotic, overwhelming Tuesday afternoon. Surrender becomes the crucial, necessary bridge between your current crushing exhaustion and the divine peace you have been desperately craving. As long as you remain firmly planted on the side of self-reliance, you will continue to sink rapidly under the unbearable weight of your own human limitations. But the very moment you take that terrifying, beautiful step of total surrender, you cross over into a glorious realm of grace, where my boundless strength perfectly compensates for your profound weakness. Feel the immense, palpable relief that is available to you right in this very moment. You do not have to have the answers today. You do not have to frantically figure out how the bills will be paid next month, how the deeply broken conversation will be permanently mended, or how the impossible, towering obstacle will be moved out of your path. Your only job right now is to trust me with all of your heart. Let the heavy, clanking armor of self-sufficiency you have been wearing clatter loudly to the floor. It is entirely too heavy for you, and you absolutely do not need it here, in the safety of my presence. I am your unshakable shield. I am your fierce defender. I am the one who fights the unseen battles for you while you simply remain still and rest in my love. Let the tears of true surrender fall freely if they need to. There is profound, holy healing in the genuine release of your hidden, long-held pain. You have held it together for so long, and it is beautifully acceptable to finally let go. Every time a new wave of panic tries to rise in your chest over the coming days, I want you to visualize yourself physically handing the situation back to me. See yourself walking boldly up to my throne of grace, placing the heavy, tangled knot gently at my feet, and walking away with empty, open hands. Empty hands are not a sign of failure or irresponsibility. They are the required, beautiful posture for receiving my divine peace and unending grace. You simply cannot receive the new, beautiful things I have prepared for your future if your hands are still stubbornly clutching the broken, jagged pieces of your own failed plans. This open, loving invitation is extended to you right now in the exact middle of your mess. Do not wait until you feel strong enough, brave enough, or spiritual enough to surrender. Because surrender is the exact, honest acknowledgement that you are not strong enough at all. Bring me your absolute bone-deep exhaustion. Bring me your profound, spinning confusion. Bring me your trembling, debilitating fear. Lay every single piece of it down. Step completely off the exhausting, endless treadmill of human striving, and step directly into the quiet, steady, life-giving rhythm of my grace. I am entirely ready to carry this massive weight for you. I have always been ready. The only thing standing between your weary spirit and the deep restorative rest your soul is groaning for is your own willingness to open your fingers. Surrender is the bridge that carries you out of the chaos and into my arms. But I know exactly what happens the morning after you make that brave decision to walk across that bridge. You wake up, you open your tired eyes, and you immediately look at your circumstances, fully expecting the massive mountain to have miraculously vanished overnight. You expect the incredibly tight knots to have completely dissolved the very second you opened your hands and chose to trust. But instead, the morning light filters through your bedroom window, and the sky is still gray. The bank account is still terrifyingly empty. The chair across the kitchen table is still painfully vacant, and the heavy medical chart remains entirely unchanged. And in that heavy, stagnant silence of an unchanged reality, a new agonizing kind of pain sets deep into your bones. The agonizing pain of waiting. I see how deeply the waiting hurts you. I see the creeping doubt that inevitably floods your exhausted mind when you have done everything right, when you have genuinely laid it all down at my feet, and yet the situation remains stubbornly, solidly fixed in place. It is one of the most painfully difficult aspects of your entire faith journey, learning how to endure the quiet, seemingly empty space between the moment you completely surrender and the moment I finally deliver the visible resolution. I know what it feels like for you to sit in the waiting room of life. It feels incredibly isolating, like you are stuck in a holding pattern while the rest of the world continues to move forward at a rapid pace. You watch other people receive their sudden breakthroughs. You see their complex knots effortlessly untangled and their joyful prayers instantly answered. And that sharp, painful sting of comparison makes your own waiting room feel incredibly cold, forgotten, and profoundly lonely. You hear the testimonies of others, celebrating their victories, and while you try to force a smile and be happy for them, your heart quietly shatters a little more, wondering when it will finally be your turn. I hear the frustrated, exhausted questions you whisper into the dark, when days turn into weeks, and weeks bleed painfully into months, with absolutely no visible sign of change. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, honestly wondering if you're desperate. Tear-soaked prayers are simply bouncing off the drywall and echoing back into the empty room. You start to entertain the terrifying, creeping fear that I have somehow forgotten you, that your file has been completely misplaced on my desk, or that you are somehow being silently punished for a past mistake. You wonder if you did not pray with the right words, if your faith was not quite strong enough, or if I am simply ignoring the intense urgency of your breaking heart. You feel your impatience rising, boiling over into a quiet, simmering anger, and you are overwhelmingly tempted to reach out and snatch the problem right back out of my hands. Because at least when you were frantically striving, pacing the floors, and making endless phone calls, you felt like you were actively doing something to save yourself. I understand that restless, desperate urge perfectly. I know how much your limited human nature craves immediate motion and tangible proof that something is happening. My child, listen to me very carefully right now, and let these words sink into the deepest, most anxious parts of your soul. A delay is not a denial. The silence you are currently experiencing is not an indication of my absence, nor is it a sign of my disinterest in your profound pain. I have not forgotten you for a single second, and I have not turned my face away from your daily struggle. You are looking at the unchanged, still surface of your life, and assuming that because you cannot see the circumstances visibly moving, absolutely nothing is happening behind the scenes. But you must understand that the most profound, deeply rooted spiritual growth in your entire life only happens right here in this highly uncomfortable, severely stretching space of the waiting room. If I were to instantly fix every heavy problem the exact second you handed it to me, you would only ever know me as a cosmic vending machine. You would never have the necessary opportunity to develop the deep, unshakable roots of faith that are absolutely required to sustain you through the heavier, darker storms of life. Trust is not truly forged in the warm sunlight when everything is easily working out in your favor and the path ahead is perfectly clear. True resilient trust is exclusively forged in the pitch black when you have absolutely nothing left to lean on except the raw, untested promise of my word. This prolonged, agonizing season of waiting is the exact, perfect environment where I am completely rebuilding your spiritual foundation from the ground up. I am intentionally developing a profound patience within you, stretching your emotional capacity to endure immense hardship without losing your joy or abandoning your hope. I am carefully cultivating a deep, beautiful humility in your spirit, gently teaching you that you do not have to dictate the precise timeline of your own rescue in order to be entirely safe. Every single day that you choose to wake up, face the unchanged, intimidating mountain, and softly say, I still trust you. Despite the glaring lack of visible evidence, your faith muscles are being severely stretched and miraculously strengthened. I want to absolutely assure you today that the time you are spending in this quiet, agonizing wait is never, ever wasted. Not a single minute of your daily endurance is pointless or overlooked. You're not just helplessly killing time until the breakthrough finally decides to arrive. You're actively, purposefully being prepared to carry the immense weight of the blessing I'm bringing to you. If I handed you the massive resolution right now, while your spirit is still so fragile, so easily shaken by fear, and so reliant on your own understanding, the very answer to your prayer could actually crush you. The waiting room is the protective divine incubator, where your character is finally catching up to your calling. It is the sacred purifying space where the impurities of pride, control, and self-reliance are being gently burned away. You are learning how to stand firmly on the solid rock of my eternal faithfulness, rather than the shifting, unpredictable sands of your rapidly changing emotions and circumstances. You are discovering a steadfast endurance that will serve as a powerful, unbreakable anchor for the rest of your life on earth. I know you often look at the ticking clock on the wall and frantically tell me that I am running out of time. You anxiously measure my faithfulness against your strict human deadlines, and when the calendar page turns without a clear resolution, you mistakenly conclude that I am painfully slow. You think I am lingering, hesitating, or perhaps just failing to grasp the desperate urgency of your current crisis. I am lovingly but firmly correcting that misconception in your heart right now. I am never slow. My child, I am precise. I operate with a divine, flawless precision, that takes into account a million unseen variables that your limited human mind cannot even begin to comprehend. A rescuer who moves with precision is infinitely more trustworthy than a rescuer who simply moves with reckless speed. I am not rushing to apply a cheap temporary bandage to a deep spiritual wound that requires complex divine surgery. I am taking the exact, perfect amount of time required to untangle this massive mess so completely and so thoroughly that it will never ever be able to bind you in this specific way again. So I want to provide deep, soothing comfort for your weary, exhausted mind today. I want you to take a long, deep breath and let the concrete truth of my presence anchor your racing thoughts. Even in the quietest, most painfully still moments of your waiting, when it feels like the entire universe has completely stalled and you have been entirely left behind, the untangling process is actively occurring right beneath the surface of your circumstances. You cannot hear the heavy gears shifting. You cannot see the massive obstacles being moved out of the way, and you cannot yet feel the spiritual atmosphere changing. But I am fiercely at work on your behalf. The roots of your upcoming breakthrough are growing deep in the dark soil, completely hidden from your view. But they are growing stronger and reaching deeper by the hour. Do not ever mistake the quietness of the soil for the death of the planted seed. I am carefully aligning the scattered pieces. I am softening the hardened hearts involved, and I am perfectly paving the exact path you are meant to walk. You are not waiting in vain. Your hot tears are not falling unnoticed, and your desperate whispered prayers are absolutely not bouncing off the ceiling. They are safely gathered in my hands, and they are actively shaping the precise, beautiful outcome that I am meticulously crafting for you. Let me pull back the heavy curtain of your physical reality just for a moment, my precious child, so you can catch a fleeting glimpse of what is actually happening behind the scenes of your life. While you are sitting there, staring blankly at a closed door, feeling the cold draft of disappointment, and convinced that your story has reached a premature, unyielding end, I am actively moving pieces across the global board that you cannot yet see. You are judging the trajectory of your entire future based solely on what is immediately visible to your tired eyes, but your vision is confined to a tiny, fractionated sliver of time. If you could only step out of your current timeline and stand beside me, looking down at the magnificent expanse of your life, the paralyzing fear in your chest would instantly evaporate into profound, holy wonder. You look at the tangled mess in front of you and see a chaotic standstill. But I see a divine symphony of moving parts coming together in perfect harmony. I want you to visualize this with me. Right now, in this very moment, while you are listening to my voice, I am orchestrating conversations hundreds of miles away between people you have not even met yet, preparing their minds and shifting their resources to intersect with your journey at the exact, necessary millisecond. I am aligning complex circumstances across different cities and different industries, arranging a master sequence of events that will eventually swing that closed door wide open. I am shifting resources, repositioning opportunities, and blocking the wrong paths so you do not accidentally wander into a painful compromise. My work in the dark of your waiting season is just as powerful, intentional, and miraculous as my work in the blazing light of your sudden breakthroughs. I know the deep, suffocating ache that grips your heart when you feel like you are perpetually stuck in neutral, while everyone else is aggressively accelerating. You silently scroll through the highlight reels of the world, watching others effortlessly cross the monumental finish lines you have been desperately crawling toward, on your hands and knees, for years. That heavy sinking feeling of being permanently left behind tries to convince you that I have shown favoritism, that your potential has permanently expired, or that you are simply disqualified from experiencing a beautiful outcome. But I am gently lifting your chin today to replace those tormenting fears with the awe-inspiring reality of divine orchestration. You are not stuck. My child, you are securely anchored. You are not being left behind. You are being intentionally held back in the absolute safety of my shadow until the environment ahead is perfectly prepared to receive you, my child. If you could see the breathtaking scale of what I'm building for you, You would absolutely never ask me to rush this intricate process. When a builder constructs a massive skyscraper designed to withstand violent storms, the majority of the crucial work happens entirely underground, completely hidden from the public eye. For a long time, passers-by only see a deep hole in the dirt, assuming nothing of value is being constructed. But the builder knows that the stability of the eventual tower is entirely dependent on the agonizingly slow depth of the unseen foundation. I am digging a massive, unshakable spiritual foundation beneath your feet right now, in this exact season. I am lovingly preparing you to carry an immense weight of blessing, influence, and joy that would completely crush you if I simply handed it to your fragile, unprepared hands today. Beyond arranging the external circumstances, I am also doing a profound, unseen work inside the hearts of the people involved in your story. You have been tirelessly trying to change a hardened heart, desperately trying to force a stubborn reconciliation, or anxiously waiting for someone in authority to finally recognize your true value. You have pleaded your exhausting case and hit a solid brick wall, but where your human words have utterly failed to penetrate. My spirit is moving like a quiet, relentless river. I am softening the rigid ground. I am gently dismantling their pride in the quiet hours of the night, planting seeds of empathy and divine conviction that you could never plant yourself. I am preparing their hearts to align with my ultimate will for your life, and that profound internal transformation cannot be rushed by your anxiety. I am taking the chaotic threads of your collapsed plans and using them to reroute your entire path towards something vastly better, far more beautiful, and infinitely more fulfilling than your original, limited design. I know you deeply love the plan you mapped out for yourself. I know you grieved bitterly when the pieces unexpectedly fell apart and the road suddenly washed out beneath your feet. You thought that specific job, that exact timeline, or that particular open door was the absolute pinnacle of your potential. But your greatest dreams are merely the starting point for my divine imagination. I did not allow that door to slam shut in your face to punish you. I closed it because it was leading you into a room that was entirely too small for the magnificent purpose I have placed inside of you. The reroute always feels incredibly disorienting at first. It feels like a violent detour through a barren wilderness, and I see how that uncertainty makes your heart race with fresh panic. But I want you to experience a massive surge of faith in this very moment. I want you to feel the heavy dread lifting off your chest, replaced by a bubbling, holy anticipation of what is coming just around the bend. You are not aimlessly wandering. You are being expertly guided by the chief shepherd, who intimately knows every hidden pitfall and every secret oasis in this difficult valley. True comfort and profound encouragement do not come from finally figuring out the complex logistics of your future. They come from recognizing my constant, unshakable presence right beside you, trusting that I am actively steering the ship, even when the fog is completely blinding your view. There is a holy wonder waiting for you if you will simply stop staring in horror at the knots and start looking up at the weaver. When you look at the underside of a masterpiece tapestry, it looks like a chaotic, senseless disaster of severed threads and severely tangled knots. It makes absolutely no logical sense from your limited, grounded perspective. But I am standing above the tapestry of your life, viewing it from the beautiful top side, where every single dark thread you currently despise is being woven with absolute mastery to provide the necessary contrast for the vibrant gold threads of your upcoming victory. The chaos is only an illusion created by your earthly vantage point. From where I sit, everything is moving in perfect, rhythmic, uninterrupted order. Nothing has slipped from my grasp, and nothing has caught me by surprise. I want you to rest deeply in the absolute certainty that my unseen providence is aggressively fighting for your good, every second of every day. You can lay your weary head on your pillow tonight and sleep deeply, completely free from the torment of overthinking, because the guardian of your soul does not slumber or sleep. While you rest, I will continue to orchestrate. While you sleep, I will continue to align. While you breathe, I will actively build the bridge over the impossible chasm you are terrifyingly facing tomorrow. Your desperate striving has never once moved my hand faster, and your quiet, trusting rest will never cause my hand to move slower. Let the reality of my divine unseen orchestration wash over your exhausted mind, bringing you a renewed, fiercely resilient hope that cannot be shaken by the temporary winds of this present trial. The pieces of your beautiful puzzle are slowly but surely locking into their designated places in the dark. The stage is being meticulously set, the lighting is being perfectly adjusted, and the grand curtain is preparing to rise on the next remarkable chapter of your life. I am untangling the heavy, suffocating mess, and I am replacing it with a divine, perfect order that will leave you absolutely breathless with profound gratitude. But before I can fully reveal this orchestrated masterpiece to you, and before you can freely walk into this bright new season without dragging the toxic chains of your past along with you, we must address the final, most painful knot that remains deeply embedded within your weary heart. That final knot is the heavy, toxic entanglement of bitterness and unforgiveness. I know that just hearing those words causes your chest to tighten and your defensive walls to immediately rise. You have carefully guarded this specific knot for a very long time, protecting it, because the pain associated with it is so incredibly deep and so profoundly personal. This is not a struggle against a faceless circumstance, a financial deficit, or a career setback. This is about a person. This is about a betrayal. It is about a moment, or perhaps a series of moments, where someone you trusted, someone you loved, or someone who was supposed to protect you, carelessly broke your heart instead. I see the tears that still spring to your eyes when their name crosses your mind. And I know exactly how much energy it takes for you to constantly push that painful memory back down into the dark. I want to validate the absolute reality of your pain today. What happened to you was not right. It was not fair. It was not justified. And it deeply grieved my heart to watch you endure that level of hurt. You have every earthly right to feel angry. Your sense of justice is screaming that they should have to pay for what they took from you, and that holding on to this burning resentment is the only way to ensure that their offense is never minimized or forgotten. But I must tell you the absolute liberating truth about the grudge you are carrying so fiercely. My child, unforgiveness is a knot that chokes your own spirit, not the one who wronged you. You have been holding on to this burning coal of anger, tightly gripping it in your bare hands, silently hoping that the person who hurt you will somehow feel the burn. But they do not feel it. They are likely walking through their own days, completely unaware of the massive emotional prison you have constructed for yourself in their honor. The bitterness you are harboring is not serving as a shield to protect you from further harm. It is acting as a toxic venom that is slowly poisoning your own capacity for joy, your ability to trust, and your openness to the beautiful things I am trying to bring into your life. When you refuse to forgive, you are essentially chaining your own soul to the very person who broke your heart, allowing them to continue dictating your emotional state long after the actual event has passed. I want to completely sever that toxic chain today. I want to gently untangle this suffocating knot of resentment so that you can finally take a full, deep, unhindered breath. I know how immensely difficult it is to let go of justified anger. It feels entirely reckless to lay down your righteous indignation. You are terrified that if you forgive them, you are somehow saying that what they did was acceptable, or that it did not matter. But true biblical forgiveness is never about validating a wrong. It is never about pretending the abuse, the betrayal, or the abandonment did not leave a gaping wound in your life. Forgiveness is simply the courageous, intentional decision to completely surrender your personal right to exact revenge, choosing instead to place the offender entirely into my sovereign hands for perfect justice. I am a God of infinite mercy, but I am also a God of absolute justice. I saw every tear you cried in secret. I witnessed every manipulation, every lie, and every harsh word spoken against you behind closed doors. You do not have to carry the exhausting burden of being the judge and jury anymore. When you finally release this person into my hands, you are not letting them off the hook. You are permanently taking yourself off of their hook. You are stepping out of the agonizing courtroom of resentment and walking freely into the bright sunlight of my grace. This radical forgiveness requires extending the exact same unmerited grace and boundless mercy that I have so freely poured out upon you. Think of the countless times you have fallen short, the moments you have spoken in anger, the times you have broken promises, and the ways you have wandered away from my perfect will. Yet when you came to me with a heavy, repentant heart, I did not hold your offenses over your head. I did not demand that you earn your way back into my love, nor did I make you sit in the cold shadow of my resentment. I wiped your slate completely clean, washed you in absolute grace, and called you my beloved child. Core Christian values are not just comforting words to read on a Sunday morning. They are the grueling, beautiful, life-saving practices that rescue your soul from the suffocating grip of darkness. I am calling you higher today. I am asking you to draw deeply from the limitless well of my unconditional compassion and to let that divine mercy flow through you toward the person who least deserves it. You cannot do this in your own human strength because your human nature demands retribution. But my Spirit living within you possesses the supernatural power to genuinely forgive the unforgivable. And as we untangle these painful relational knots, I must also address the deep, silent grudge you are holding against someone else yourself. You have been acting as your own harshest critic, mercilessly punishing yourself for past mistakes, for the times you failed to protect your family, for the foolish decisions you made when you were hurting, and for the seasons where your faith felt completely bankrupt. You constantly replay the tapes of your greatest regrets, convinced that your current hardship is simply the ongoing punishment you deserve for not being strong enough, wise enough, or holy enough. But my precious child, I have already forgiven you. I cast your sins as far as the east is from the west, the very moment you asked for my mercy. Why do you insist on digging up the very things I have intentionally buried in the sea of my forgetfulness? The heavy knot of self-condemnation is blocking the flow of my peace in your life, just as much as your bitterness toward others. You must forgive yourself. You must release the impossible expectation of human perfection and gracefully accept the beautiful reality of your own redemption. The intentional release of this heavy bitterness, both toward others and toward yourself, is one of the most profound acts of worship you could ever offer me. It is a powerful spiritual declaration that you trust my heart more than you trust your own anger. As you make this incredibly difficult choice today, I want you to literally visualize yourself opening your hands and letting the burning coals of resentment fall to the ground. Watch as the toxic smoke clears from your mind. Feel the unbearable restrictive tension leaving your chest. You are clearing out the dark, cluttered spaces of your heart, violently sweeping away the heavy debris of past offenses, and beautifully preparing your internal home to receive the full, magnificent measure of peace that is coming to you. This radical act of liberation is breaking the spiritual strongholds that have kept you completely paralyzed in this valley. You are finally stepping out of the toxic shadows of unforgiveness and moving into a space of pure, unhindered freedom. But this level of deep spiritual untangling and profound emotional release rarely happens without causing a significant shift in your spiritual atmosphere. As I pull the remaining impurities to the surface of your heart, you will begin to feel an intense, undeniable heat. The process of completely removing these deeply embedded knots requires a wholly necessary friction that might feel incredibly uncomfortable to your weary soul. uncomfortable to your weary soul. When this intense heat first begins to rise, your immediate instinct is to pull away, to assume that something has gone terribly wrong. You have cried out for relief, for an easy exit, for a sudden miraculous lifting of your burdens. And instead, it feels as though the temperature of your trial has suddenly been turned up. I see the profound confusion in your tear-filled eyes, and I hear the desperate question echoing in your mind. If God is fixing this, why does it still hurt so much? You feel as though you are being severely tested, pulled taut, and stretched far beyond your perceived human limits. You wake up feeling emotionally raw, hypersensitive to every interaction, and utterly exhausted by the sheer spiritual friction of this deep internal transformation. I want to validate exactly how hard this phase of your journey truly is. It is entirely normal to feel disoriented when the heavy, familiar things you have relied on for so long are finally being dismantled. But I need you to trust me implicitly right now, because what feels like violent destruction to your limited perspective is actually the most beautiful, meticulous construction of your entire life. My child, the heat you feel pressing in on all sides is not here to destroy you, but to gracefully burn away everything that is not of me. You are currently standing in the very center of the refiner's fire. When a wild, untamed fire sweeps through a dry forest, its only objective is chaotic, merciless destruction. It consumes everything in its path, without thought, without care, and without purpose, leaving nothing but barren ash behind. But a refiner's fire is entirely different. It is highly controlled, deeply intentional, and driven solely by the passionate desire to reveal the true hidden value of the precious metal placed inside it. You are my precious silver, my highly valued gold. The flames surrounding your life right now are not evidence of my anger, my disappointment, or my absence. They are the undeniable burning proof of my profound, unwavering investment in your eternal character. I am actively working to extract a priceless, radiant treasure from your life that could never ever be produced in the cool, comfortable shade of an easy, unchallenged season. You have desperately asked me to change your difficult circumstances, and I promise you that I will, but I am doing something infinitely more important. First, I am changing you. I am not just rearranging the external furniture of your life to make you slightly more comfortable for a little while. I am completely rebuilding the entire foundation of your character, from the bedrock up. Inside this holy crucible, the intense heat is causing all the hidden toxic impurities of your soul to rise to the surface, so they can be carefully, permanently skimmed away. The stubborn pride that quietly told you that you could survive without my daily sustaining grace is finally melting away. The exhausting self-reliance, the toxic need for human approval, the deeply ingrained impatience, and the fragile false identities you have hidden behind for decades are all being consumed by these purposeful flames. This process hurts deeply because you have become so intimately attached to these heavy impurities that you have mistakenly identified them as your actual personality. But I know who you truly are, beneath all of that earthly broken residue, and I love you far too much to let you remain bound by things that severely diminish your spiritual capacity. It is time to completely shift your perspective regarding this painful, lingering season. The enemy of your soul desperately wants you to view yourself as a helpless victim of cruel circumstances tossed around arbitrarily by bad luck, unfair treatment, and a silent heaven. But you are absolutely not a victim. You are a fiercely beloved, hand-picked, chosen child of the Most High God, currently undergoing a profound divine transformation. Every single hot tear you shed in this fire, every moment you feel like you are being stretched completely past your breaking point, is actively producing a heavy, eternal weight of glory within you that cannot even be compared to your present suffering. When you feel like you are finally breaking into pieces, you are not actually shattering. Your spirit is simply expanding to hold the massive, unprecedented blessings I have meticulously prepared for your next season. The narrow, restrictive, fear-based boundaries of your old faith are being forcefully pushed outward, creating a vast, unshakable capacity for deep spiritual maturity and profound emotional resilience. I want to give you a profound, unshakable comfort right now to anchor your weary soul. You are absolutely never, ever alone in the flames. When a master silversmith refines his precious metal, he never walks away from the crucible, not even for a single moment. He sits directly in front of the raging fire, keeping his eyes firmly and relentlessly fixed on the melting silver, closely monitoring the exact temperature. He knows precisely how much heat is required to draw out the stubborn impurities, and he ensures the fire never gets a single degree hotter than what is absolutely necessary for the purification process. I am your master refiner. I am sitting right beside you in the very center of this intense fire. My eyes are locked onto your weary beating heart, and my sovereign hand is securely resting on the thermostat of your trial. I know exactly how much pressure your fragile frame can handle, and I will strictly forbid this hardship from consuming you. I am actively watching over your mind, fiercely protecting your spirit, and carefully guiding this entire painful process with flawless divine precision. When does the silversmith finally know that the intense refining process is complete? He knows the silver is perfectly pure when he can lean over the glowing crucible and see his own reflection perfectly clearly mirrored in the surface of the liquid metal. That is my beautiful ultimate goal for you, my precious child. I am carefully keeping you in this transformative fire until the heavy, suffocating layers of fear, doubt, bitterness, and self-reliance are completely burned away, leaving absolutely nothing but the pure, radiant reflection of my love, my grace, and my unshakable peace shining through your life. You are going to emerge from this excruciating season carrying a stronger, purer, and vastly more resilient faith than you ever thought possible. You will eventually walk out of these flames without even the faint, lingering smell of smoke on your clothes, beautifully equipped with a profound, hard-won spiritual maturity that no future storm, no unexpected crisis, and no earthly disappointment will ever be able to shake or dismantle. Let this deep, eternal spiritual truth completely reframe the intense pain of your current process today. The agonizing discomfort you are feeling is not a punishment for your past failures. It is the beautiful, necessary, divine preparation for your impending breakthrough. The uncomfortable heat is simply making vital room for the miraculous intervention I am bringing. Every single time you feel the sharp, uncomfortable sting of this spiritual stretching, I want you to take a long, deep breath and gently remind your anxious, racing heart that you are actively being purified, not destroyed. You are being meticulously, lovingly prepared to step into a breathtaking level of freedom, influence, and joy that absolutely requires a pure, fully refined vessel. As you finally surrender to and embrace the holy purpose of this fire, you will find a miraculous, steadying hope rising up within you, completely overriding the heavy despair. You will begin to clearly see that this painful season is actually the greatest, most profound evidence of my unfailing love for you. And as this deep, purifying work finishes its perfect, glorious course in your character, you must now prepare your mind to entirely release the heavy, suffocating anxieties you have been carrying about the unknown days ahead. You have spent so much of your life standing on the very edge of tomorrow, staring into the dense fog of the unknown, and bracing yourself for a catastrophic impact. I see the suffocating fear that instantly grips your throat when you try to look ahead. You have allowed your imagination to become a dark, terrifying theater where the worst possible outcomes are played on a continuous, exhausting loop. You wake up in the middle of the night, and before your feet even touch the floor, a heavy wave of anxiety about what might happen comes crashing down over your chest. You are deeply afraid of the blank pages in your future, completely convinced that because you cannot see the exact path forward, it must lead directly to a sudden, devastating cliff. But you are looking at the days ahead, through a lens fractured by trauma and exhaustion, projecting your past pains onto a future that has not even arrived yet. I know the exact specific worries that are aggressively hunting your peace right now. I see the heavy dread you carry regarding your financial stability, the quiet panic that whispers you are one unexpected bill away from complete and total ruin. I hear the silent, terrified questions you ask about your health or the health of the people you love, wondering if that nagging symptom or that upcoming appointment will be the one that completely shatters your world. I see your desperate, agonizing worry about the stability of your family, the intense fear that the fragile threads holding your home together will finally snap under the relentless pressure. The enemy has been ruthlessly feeding you these terrifying scenarios, building a massive fortress of anxiety in your mind by convincing you that disaster is absolutely inevitable. He wants you so paralyzed by the fear of tomorrow that you are entirely robbed of the grace, the beauty, and the profound presence I am offering you today. My child, you are trying to write the end of a story that firmly and eternally belongs to my pen. You have picked up the heavy instrument of authorship, attempting to draft the final chapters of this difficult season, based entirely on your limited human logic and your current emotional exhaustion. But you do not have the complete manuscript, and your fearful predictions are drastically misrepresenting my perfect character. When you attempt to script your own future, you naturally write from a place of intense vulnerability and profound limitation. You write endings that heavily reflect your insecurities, your past failures, and your deepest anxieties. But I am the author and the finisher of your faith. I write from a place of infinite victory, boundless provision, and perfect unfailing love. The story I am currently crafting for your life does not end in your destruction. It does not end in permanent heartbreak, financial desolation, or an unrecoverable failure. It ends in my glory, and it ends in your ultimate beautiful redemption. It is time to aggressively combat the vicious lies of the enemy that have been trying to convince you that your future is hopelessly doomed. You have listened to the deceptive voice of fear for so long that it has started to sound like the voice of absolute truth. But fear is a liar. Fear tells you that you have finally run out of options, that I have turned my back on you, and that the rapidly approaching storm will absolutely capsize your fragile boat. Today, I am entirely dismantling those toxic lies with the blinding light of my eternal track record of faithfulness. I want you to stop staring at the intimidating giants in your future and look back at the massive, undeniable history of my grace in your past. Have I ever abandoned you in the middle of a dark valley? Have I ever allowed you to completely drown when the turbulent waters rose far above your head? Have I ever failed to provide exactly what you needed at the exact necessary moment? My track record is utterly flawless. I have never lost a single battle, and I am certainly not going to start by losing yours. I want to wash your exhausted racing mind with the soothing, unbreakable promises of my word. I have specifically promised to provide you with perfect guidance, enduring hope, and complete healing. When you cannot see the next step, you do not have to panic, because I have promised to be a bright lamp unto your feet and a clear light unto your path. When the circumstances around you feel utterly hopeless, you can anchor your soul in the absolute certainty that I have plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a beautiful, secure future and a lasting hope. When your body or your spirit feels broken beyond repair, you can fiercely hold on to the truth that I am the Lord who heals you. These are not empty poetic sentiments meant to temporarily soothe your fragile emotions. They are the concrete, unshakable laws of my kingdom. Heaven and earth will pass away before a single one of my promises to you fails to materialize. The emotional atmosphere in your heart must boldly shift right now, moving away from deep, fearful introspection and stepping confidently into a posture of victorious declaration. You can no longer afford to passively entertain the toxic, anxiety-inducing thoughts that are actively trespassing in your mind. I am firmly challenging you today to serve a permanent eviction notice to fear. It has absolutely no legal right to occupy the sacred space of your imagination. Every single time a terrifying scenario tries to knock on the door of your mind, I want you to rise up in the absolute authority I've given you and aggressively shut that door. You must stop negotiating with your anxieties. You must stop offering a comfortable seat at your table to the very dread that is actively trying to starve your spirit. You belong to me, and a fiercely loved child of the Most High God does not have to cower in the corner waiting for the sky to fall. I want you to intentionally replace that evicted fear with a deep, unshakable confidence in my absolute goodness. Confidence in me is not a denial of the very real, very intimidating problems you are facing. Rather, it is the fierce, unwavering conviction that I am infinitely larger than any obstacle that dares to stand in your way. When you truly understand the magnificent magnitude of my power and the limitless depth of my unconditional love for you, the threatening shadows of the future instantly lose their ability to intimidate you. You begin to walk differently. You begin to speak differently. Your heavy shoulders finally drop. Your rapid breathing slows, and your anxious heart fully aligns with the quiet, steady rhythm of my grace. I want you to look squarely at the terrifying unknown that has kept you paralyzed for so long, and I want you to declare with absolute certainty that your Heavenly Father is already there, actively preparing the ground and heavily fighting for your ultimate victory. You must make a conscious daily decision to stop predicting your own disaster. The relentless anticipation of ruin is an exhausting, heavy burden that I never ever asked you to carry. Instead of using your precious God-given energy to meticulously plan for a catastrophe that I will not even allow to happen, I want you to start actively, joyfully anticipating the miraculous intervention of your Heavenly Father. Start looking for the sudden, beautiful plot twists that I am famous for writing. Start expecting my favor to show up in the most unlikely, unprecedented places. When you shift your daily expectation from inevitable defeat to imminent rescue, you create a powerful magnetic atmosphere of faith that allows profound inner peace to completely flood your life. This is the beautiful, transcendent peace that acts as a heavy, iron shield around your mind, entirely protecting you from the exhausting arrows of anxiety. You do not need to know exactly what tomorrow holds, because you intimately know the one who holds tomorrow securely in his hands. The heavy, complicated knots of the future are not yours to untangle. I have already walked into your tomorrow. I have already secured your abundant provision, and I have already paved a safe, clear path through the rapidly approaching storm. You can finally lay your head down tonight and rest in the glorious, liberating truth that your future is not a chaotic, terrifying accident waiting to happen. It is a meticulously designed masterpiece of grace. As you breathe in this new, victorious atmosphere, letting go of the desperate need to control what has not yet arrived, you will suddenly realize something profoundly beautiful about your current state of exhaustion. You will suddenly realize that this profound exhaustion, this absolute depletion of your human reserves, is not the shameful defeat you have believed it to be. For so long, you have looked at your inability to hold all the spinning plates in the air as a massive personal failure. I see the deep, heavy shame that washes over you when you drop one of those plates, when you finally hit the invisible wall of your own limitations and simply cannot take another step. You have been living in a culture that relentlessly glorifies power, independence, and relentless capability. The world around you constantly shouts that you must be strong, that you must be entirely self-made, and that admitting you are completely overwhelmed is a fatal sign of weakness. You see other people carefully curating their highlight reels effortlessly, balancing their careers, their families, and their faith. And a dark, toxic lie takes root in your mind. You begin to believe that you are the only one struggling to keep your head above water. Because you have absorbed this toxic worldly script, you have spent years silently apologizing for your humanity. You apologize to yourself when you need to rest, feeling guilty for closing your eyes, when there is still so much work to be done. You feel a sharp pang of inadequacy when you cannot immediately fix a loved one's pain or instantly resolve a complex family conflict. You feel a burning sense of spiritual failure when your own strength completely gives out before the sun even goes down. You have been carrying this secret agonizing belief that if you were just a better Christian, a stronger person, a more devoted parent, or a wiser leader, you would not be crumbling under this immense pressure. You have internalized the struggle wearing your exhaustion as a heavy badge of shame, hiding your tears, because you are absolutely terrified that if anyone truly saw how fragile you feel right now, they would lose all respect for you. But today, I am entirely flipping this worldly script on its head. I want to replace your profound shame with a beautiful, liberating revelation that will forever change the way you view your own limitations. My precious child, stop apologizing for your frailty. Stop hiding your brokenness as if it is a disgraceful secret that somehow disqualifies you from my love. Your weakness is not a character flaw, and it is certainly not a permanent barrier to my presence. In my kingdom, the rules of power are completely reversed. Your absolute undeniable weakness is the exact divine prerequisite for my limitless power to be made perfectly manifest in your life. It is the very doorway through which my magnificent restoring glory enters your story. When you are standing confidently on the mountain of your own capability, firmly relying on your intellect, your resources, and your tireless work ethic, there is absolutely no room for my miraculous intervention. You are too full of yourself to receive anything from me. But when you are brought low, when your hands are empty, and your human strength is entirely spent, you have finally reached the sacred holy ground, where true miracles are born. I need you to understand a fundamental, unshakable truth about how I intentionally designed you. I never once asked you to be entirely self-sufficient. I did not create you to navigate this harsh, broken world independently, drawing solely from the shallow, easily depleted well of your own earthly endurance. I created you to be completely, beautifully, and unapologetically God-dependent. The deep ache in your soul, that persistent gnawing feeling of not being enough for the monumental tasks set before you, is not a design flaw. It is a divine homing beacon. It is a holy hunger designed specifically to drive you back into the absolute safety of my arms. When you try to be completely self-sufficient, you are actively working against the very grain of your spiritual DNA. The heavy exhaustion that is currently crushing your chest is simply the natural, painful consequence of a finite, limited creature trying to carry an infinite divine load. I am not looking down from heaven, feeling disappointed in you because you cannot carry it. I am simply waiting with open arms for you to realize that you were never supposed to try. I have watched you closely in your darkest, most isolated moments. I have heard the raw, desperate whisper that barely escapes your trembling lips when the tears finally break through your carefully constructed defenses and you softly confess to the empty room, "I can't do this anymore." You say those heavy words with such a profound sense of defeat, believing that reaching the absolute end of your rope means you have utterly failed the ultimate test of faith. You think that confessing your inability to cope is a betrayal of your trust in me. But I want you to feel the immense, sweeping emotional relief of my response to that painful, honest confession. The very moment your exhausted spirit breathes out the words, "I can't do this anymore," is the exact triumphant moment I lean in and whisper, "I know, my child, but I can, and I will." I have been waiting so patiently for you to reach this beautiful, necessary place of absolute surrender. I have been waiting for the heavy, suffocating armor of your self-reliance to finally crack so that my perfect, sustaining grace can rush into the deep, hidden spaces of your weary soul. Your total inability to fix this tangled mess is not the tragic end of your story. It is the glorious, breathtaking beginning of mine. When you finally stop fighting the reality of your weakness, A massive invisible weight is instantly lifted from your shoulders. You no longer have to maintain the exhausting illusion that you have it all together. You no longer have to perform for my approval or hustle for your own survival. You can simply exist in my presence, fully known, entirely loved, and completely supported by the Creator of the universe. Let us celebrate the breathtaking beauty of your brokenness today. The world frantically discards what is cracked, flawed, and shattered, always searching for the shiny and the new. But I am the divine artist who actively seeks out the broken vessels. The cracks in your armor, the fragile places where your heart has been bruised and battered by this long storm, are exactly where my divine light is able to shine through the brightest. When you finally stop trying to present a flawless, impenetrable exterior to the world, you become a powerful living testament to the undeniable strength that only comes from total reliance on your Creator. People will look at your life and marvel not at your extraordinary human capability, but at the miraculous sustaining power of a God who perfectly holds you together when everything else is falling apart. Your frailty becomes the beautiful canvas upon which I paint my greatest masterpieces of redemption. As this profound realization settles deep into your spirit, I want you to feel a very real physical and spiritual lifting of the heavy burden you brought into this moment. Notice how your breathing is becoming slower and deeper. Notice how the rigid tension in your neck and your shoulders is finally beginning to melt away. The crushing weight of having to figure everything out on your own is dissolving in the warmth of my unconditional love. I want you to look down at your spiritual hands one more time. Because you have finally chosen to stop striving, because you have finally let go of the desperate, exhausting illusion of control, your hands are now completely empty. But empty hands are no longer a terrifying symbol of your failure or your lack. They are the perfect, absolutely necessary posture to receive the overwhelming abundance of my grace and my unshakable strength. You are finally in the exact position for the spiritual atmosphere around you to completely break open. Can you feel it shifting right now? My child, that heavy, oppressive air that has surrounded you for so long is suddenly beginning to clear. The spiritual atmosphere in the room where you are sitting is completely breaking open, making way for a profound transformation. For months, you have lived with a tight, suffocating pressure resting directly on your chest, a relentless weight that made every single breath feel like a strenuous, painful effort. But right here in this sacred, quiet moment of your total surrender, that physical and emotional pressure is rapidly dissolving. I am lifting the crushing burden off your weary shoulders, and I want you to actively lean into the breathtaking sensation of that sudden, beautiful lightness. You are not imagining this profound relief. It is the tangible, powerful evidence of my spirit moving directly into the spaces you have finally emptied. The desperate exhaustion that has been pulling you under for so long is being miraculously replaced by a rising tide of divine restorative energy. Listen closely to the sound of your ultimate deliverance. The heavy rusted chains of anxiety that have kept your mind bound in absolute terror are finally snapping. The impossibly tight knots of fear, bitterness, and self-reliance that you spent countless agonizing nights trying to frantically untangle are giving way beneath the gentle, sovereign touch of my hands. What you could not fix with all your exhausting human striving, I am effortlessly unwinding in the beautiful stillness of your surrender. The complex, terrifying situations that felt entirely deadlocked are being unraveled, thread by stubborn thread, right before your eyes. You are feeling the visceral, undeniable release of the toxic tension that you have carried for so long. Your soul is finally stepping out of the dark, cramped prison of survival mode and walking confidently into the vast sunlit pastures of my unconditional grace. The frantic need to manipulate your surroundings is completely vanishing, replaced by a quiet, steady assurance that I am flawlessly managing every single detail of your life. I am calling forth a deep, unexplainable peace to completely flood your weary, battered spirit right now. This is not the fragile, temporary peace that the world offers when things briefly go according to your limited human plan. This is my perfect peace, a supernatural, deeply anchored calm that entirely surpasses all human understanding. It makes absolutely no sense to your natural mind. According to the world's frantic, fear-based standards, you should still be panicking. You should still be pacing the floor, weeping over the broken pieces, and bracing for the next inevitable disaster. But instead, a profound, quiet stillness has firmly anchored your racing heart. The violent storm may still be raging furiously outside your window, and the fierce winds may still be howling loudly against the fragile walls of your life. But inside your soul, the turbulent waters have suddenly become perfectly, beautifully still. You are experiencing the miraculous, steady calm that only exists in the very center of my fierce protective embrace. Experience the magnificent, undeniable shift taking place within the deepest chambers of your heart. You are miraculously transitioning from a posture of sheer debilitating panic to a posture of powerful, victorious praise. The bitter, exhausted weeping that defined your darkest, most isolated nights is beautifully transforming into genuine, heartfelt worship. You are no longer crying out in desperate, confused agony. You are lifting your empty hands in profound, humble gratitude, fully recognizing that the battle belongs entirely to me. This emotional recovery is not something you have manufactured through positive thinking or sheer human willpower. It is a holy, atmospheric change orchestrated directly by my spirit. Faith is completely and decisively overriding your lingering fear. The terrifying shadows of doubt that used to dominate your daily thoughts are rapidly fleeing from the brilliant, consuming light of this newly discovered trust. You are finally breathing the clean, oxygen-rich air of my kingdom, and the toxic smog of your anxiety is being entirely blown away. I want to confirm a powerful, life-changing reality in your spirit today, one that will forever alter how you view your struggles. Even if your external circumstances have not yet perfectly resolved, even if the visible mountain has not physically moved a single inch, the internal war is officially decisively won. The enemy thought he could use this prolonged hardship to permanently break your spirit and sever your vital connection to my love. He firmly believed the crushing weight of this trial would force you to walk away from your faith entirely. But he drastically underestimated the divine resilience I lovingly placed inside of you. You have stood boldly in the absolute center of the refiner's fire. You have faithfully endured the excruciating silence of the waiting room, and you have survived the agonizing tearing of your most painful relational knots. And now you are standing on the other side of that brutal internal battle as a fierce, victorious warrior. The victory is already eternally secured in your soul. The external circumstances have absolutely no choice but to eventually bow to the magnificent spiritual triumph that has just taken place within you. The spiritual maturity you have gained through this brutal, exhausting struggle is now beautifully, undeniably evident. You are absolutely not the same fragile, fearful person who first walked trembling into this dark valley. I look at you now, and I see a beloved, fierce child whose roots have grown impossibly deep into the solid bedrock of my faithfulness. You have learned exactly how to trust me when your tired eyes could not trace my hand. You have learned how to genuinely forgive the unforgivable, how to boldly release your desperate grip on tomorrow, and how to find your ultimate, unshakable strength in the quietest moments of your absolute weakness. This profound, radiant maturity is the priceless treasure I was carefully, patiently extracting from the flames of your affliction. Your faith is no longer a fragile, untested theory spoken on Sundays. It is a battle-tested, unshakable fortress that will actively protect your mind for the rest of your earthly journey. I am so incredibly proud of the resilient, trusting spirit you have allowed me to forge within you. Allow the full, triumphant weight of this massive emotional recovery to settle deeply and permanently into your bones. The central promise I made to you at the very beginning of this difficult journey is being beautifully realized right now, entirely inside your heart. I am actively untangling what you absolutely could not fix. The massive, heavy burden ends right here in this sacred, holy space of your complete and utter surrender. You feel physically and spiritually lighter because you truly are lighter. The invisible, suffocating chains have fallen permanently to the ground, and your spirit is finally completely free, to soar high above the chaotic circumstances that used to hold you securely captive. You are walking in a profound, liberated grace, entirely untethered from the heavy expectations and the toxic, paralyzing fears that once dictated your every waking moment. The internal breakthrough you are experiencing right now is the crucial, necessary preparation for the grand external manifestation of my perfect promises. I had to completely heal your fractured heart before I could safely heal your broken circumstances, and that beautiful internal healing is now gloriously complete. Everything inside of you has finally shifted into perfect divine alignment. Your anxious mind is entirely quiet, your battered heart is completely at rest, and your weary spirit is securely tethered to the unshakable anchor of my eternal love. You are no longer exhausting yourself by fighting against the strong current of my will. You are peacefully, joyfully floating in the vast, abundant ocean of my endless grace. The deep, unexplainable joy that is beginning to bubble up inside of you is the true, authentic joy of a soul that has finally stopped striving and started truly resting. It is the radiant, unshakable joy of a child who knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that their Heavenly Father is completely in control of the universe. You have bravely weathered the darkest, most terrifying part of the storm, and the warm, brilliant sun is finally breaking violently through the heavy gray clouds. Embrace this victorious lightness with everything you have. Hold tightly to this miraculous, unexplainable peace. Let it wash over every single exhausted fiber of your being, completely reviving your hope and entirely restoring your vision for the beautiful, vibrant days that lie ahead. As you stand here in the bright, warm, healing light of this internal victory, breathing freely and deeply for the first time in what feels like an eternity, I want to gently turn your attention back to the painful, complicated journey you just completed. I want you to see the intricate, breathtaking reality of what we have actually accomplished together in the dark. You have spent this entire season looking at the chaotic, tangled underside of the threads, weeping bitterly over the apparent brokenness, the delays, and the profound confusion. But now that the most painful knots are fully untangled and your spirit is finally free, it is time for me to show you the glorious top side of the masterpiece. Look with me now at the breathtaking expanse of your life from my eternal vantage point. For so long you have been pressed right up against the heavy, coarse fabric of your circumstances, your vision entirely blocked by the chaotic, frayed edges of the present moment. From where you were standing down in the deep, confusing valley of your immediate pain, all you could possibly see was the rough, tangled underside of the loom. You saw the jagged, violently severed threads of broken relationships that left you gasping for air in the middle of the night. You stared in absolute terror at the dark, heavy yarn of your financial fears and the seemingly random, painful knots of profound disappointment that threatened to completely choke out your remaining hope. It looked like a ruined, senseless disaster of a life. The colors seemed to clash aggressively, making absolutely no logical sense to your exhausted mind. And I know there were long, silent days when you genuinely wondered if I had simply abandoned the loom altogether, leaving your story to completely unravel into permanent, unrecoverable chaos. But my precious child, I have never once stopped weaving, not for a single fleeting second. I want to gently lift your weary head today and give you a sweeping, eternal perspective of this beautiful, intricate tapestry we have been meticulously creating together in the dark. As I gently turn the fabric over, I want you to gaze in awe upon the glorious masterpiece that securely resides on the top side of your life. I want you to trace my sovereign hand across the beautiful, deliberate patterns that you could not see while you were weeping. The dark, heavy threads of your suffering, the very ones you desperately begged me to completely remove from your story, were never, ever mistakes. They were absolutely divinely vital to the final picture. I intentionally used the deep charcoal threads of your profound grief, and the midnight blue threads of your agonizingly long waiting season, to provide the necessary stunning contrast for the brilliant, radiant gold threads of your upcoming victory. When the brilliant light of my glory hits the top side of this tapestry, it is those exact dark threads that will make the gold shine the absolute brightest. Without the crushing depth of that darkness, the radiant light of my sustaining grace would not shine with such magnificent, undeniable clarity. Every single tear you cried in secret, every agonizing delay that made you question my goodness, and every painful, stubborn knot of fear was used with absolute divine precision to create a lasting, unshakable testimony of my unfailing love. I did not waste a single fleeting moment of your profound pain. I know that in the very center of your profound exhaustion, your battered heart cried out for a reason. You desperately wanted to know why the refiner's fire had to burn so incredibly hot, why the waiting room had to be so agonizingly quiet, and why the untangling process required such deep, excruciating internal surgery. You pleaded with hot tears streaming down your face for the painful circumstances to finally make sense to your earthly logic. Now, in the majestic, awe-inspiring light of my sovereign design, the beautiful eternal why is finally being fully revealed to your newly liberated spirit. This intense, crushing trial was never just about you. It was never merely a test of your personal endurance or a random violent storm you simply had to survive without purpose. The profound spiritual maturity you have just fought so desperately to gain, the unshakable peace that is now permanently anchored deep in your soul, and the rich, hard-won wisdom you now carry are powerful, divine tools meticulously forged for a much greater eternal purpose. Listen to me closely. My child, there are other people in this broken, hurting world who are currently walking blindly into the exact same terrifying valley you just bravely navigated. They are sitting in the terrifying dark right now, completely paralyzed by the identical fears that used to violently suffocate you, desperately wondering if the overwhelming pressure will eventually crush them into dust. They are looking for a lifeline, searching frantically for any shred of evidence that survival is actually possible. Your survival, your deep transformation, and your miraculous healing will become a blazing beacon of hope for those who are still hopelessly trapped in the dark. When they look at your life, they will not see a perfect, flawless person who never struggled. They will see a beautiful living testament of a fiercely loved child who was perfectly sustained by their Heavenly Father when absolutely everything else fell apart. The profound comfort, the limitless grace, and the radical forgiveness you have just received directly from my hands will now flow powerfully and relentlessly through you to violently disrupt the darkness in someone else's story. This is the breathtaking, majestic reality of my redemptive nature. I am the God who brings dead things back to vibrant life. I take the scattered ashes of your deepest earthly failures, the bitter sting of your most profound rejections, and the shattered, jagged remnants of your greatest fears, and I actively build a glorious, unshakable kingdom of hope right on top of the rubble. Feel the profound, overwhelming gratitude washing over your spirit in thick, comforting waves as you finally realize that absolutely none of your agonizing suffering was ever in vain. Your deeply personal struggle had immense eternal meaning that will echo far beyond your own lifetime. The heavy lifting, the sleepless nights, the hot tears, and the quiet, desperate surrender, all of it was divinely, beautifully orchestrated to perfectly position you for this exact magnificent moment of spiritual clarity. The chaotic, terrifying illusion that your life was spinning entirely out of control has been permanently shattered, completely replaced by the fierce, unshakable faith that my perfect sovereign design has been flawlessly unfolding all along. You can look back at the treacherous, terrifying, winding path you just walked, and instead of feeling a heavy, lingering trauma gripping your chest, you can genuinely marvel at the undeniable fingerprints of my abundant grace covering every single jagged stone. You survived. because I carried you. You overcame because my spirit fought fiercely within you. The enemy intended to use this incredibly tangled mess to completely destroy your future, to steal your joy, and to sever your trust in me. But I have entirely repurposed his attack to permanently solidify your eternal foundation. You are securely, irreversibly locked into my love. You have been forever changed, beautifully refined, and perfectly aligned with my highest, greatest will for your life. The profound, quiet peace you are currently experiencing, deep in your bones, is the undeniable proof that the long, agonizing season of internal preparation is finally complete. You have bravely endured the scorching heat of the fire. You have willingly surrendered the heavy, impossible knots of bitterness and self-reliance, and you have completely trusted my unseen guiding hand, even when your human eyes could not perceive a single step forward. The profound gratitude swelling in your chest right now is the beautiful, harmonious song of a fully liberated soul, recognizing the magnificent goodness of its creator. And because this magnificent internal transformation is now permanently, irrevocably sealed within your spirit, the time has come to completely close this heavy, exhausting chapter of your life. I am officially declaring an absolute and permanent end to your season of profound exhaustion. The long, agonizingly dark night of frantic striving, of silent weeping in the shadows, and of desperately trying to calculate a way out of circumstances you could not possibly control, has finally beautifully reached its dawn. My precious child, step out of the heavy shadows of your anxiety and walk boldly into the warm, brilliant healing light of my grace. Your heavy, crushing burden ends here. It ends right now, in this very holy, sacred moment of complete spiritual surrender between you and me. You absolutely do not have to carry the overwhelming weight of tomorrow's unknown, the bitter regrets of yesterday's failures, or the suffocating anxieties of today ever again. I am permanently taking the tangled, complex, impossible mess you bravely brought to my feet, and I am fully securing it within my sovereign, unshakable grasp. You can finally stop bracing for the next devastating impact. You can permanently stop holding your breath frantically, waiting for the other shoe to drop, or for the storm to suddenly return and sweep you away. The heavy, invisible backpack of self-reliance you have been dragging up this steep, treacherous mountain for years has been completely and permanently removed from your weary shoulders. Breathe in the clean, refreshing, life-giving air of absolute unhindered freedom. You have survived the terrifying depths of the valley. You have faithfully endured the intense, purifying heat of the refiner's fire. You have waited patiently and obediently in the painfully quiet spaces. And now the glorious, undeniable breakthrough has fully arrived in your spirit. I want you to physically feel the solid, unshakable ground of my eternal faithfulness, completely supporting your tired, aching feet, holding you up when you have absolutely no strength left of your own. As you stand here beautifully positioned in this newfound spiritual freedom, I am speaking a final powerful blessing of profound peace, lasting joy, and radically renewed hope directly over your mind, your body, and your spirit. Let my perfect divine peace, which entirely surpasses all human logic and completely overrides all earthly understanding, settle deep into your exhausted nervous system, instantly calming every racing thought and soothing every lingering, painful tremor of anxiety. I command the restless, terrifying nights of tossing and turning to completely cease, beautifully replaced by deep, restorative, uninterrupted sleep. I bless your physical body, which has faithfully carried the harsh, exhausting toll of this intense emotional warfare for so many months, with supernatural healing, deep restoration, and vibrant, renewed strength. I bless your weary mind with absolute, brilliant clarity, entirely freeing you from the dense, suffocating fog of confusion, crippling indecision, and relentless overthinking. And I bless your battered spirit with a pure, uncontainable, radiant joy, not a temporary, fragile human happiness that merely depends on perfectly aligned circumstances, but a deep, resilient, eternal joy that flows directly and endlessly from my heavenly throne. This is the fierce, radiant hope that absolutely does not disappoint. It is the steady, burning, glorious light that will confidently guide you through every single future season of your life on this earth. You are completely enveloped in my divine favor, entirely surrounded by my fierce angelic protection, and completely saturated in my unconditional, unfailing love. The heavy, toxic atmosphere of dread has been permanently shattered, and the brilliant, warming sunrise of my perfect promise is now fully illuminating the beautiful contours of your healed, restored life. But as you prepare to step forward into this magnificent, vibrant new chapter, I must give you a gentle yet incredibly firm, loving reminder to protect the profound peace you have just received. When you wake up tomorrow morning, the old, deeply ingrained habits of earthly self-reliance will try to quietly whisper to your mind. The familiar nagging temptation to reach down and pick up the heavy, complicated knot you just laid at my feet will undoubtedly try to test your new, beautiful resolve. The enemy of your soul will desperately try to convince you that if you do not actively worry about the problem, if you do not obsess over the details, you are somehow being careless and irresponsible with your future. You may even feel a phantom weight on your shoulders, like a prisoner who has been completely set free, but still walks with a heavy limp out of sheer long-held habit. When that fleeting moment of familiar panic tries to rise in your chest, I want you to immediately stop, take a long, deep breath, and boldly declare to the darkness that you absolutely refuse to carry what no longer belongs to you. Do not pick back up the heavy, toxic chains of bitterness, the exhausting, frantic illusion of control, or the paralyzing, suffocating fear of the unknown. They are entirely too small, too heavy, and too destructive for where I am taking you next. Leave the shattered, broken pieces of your painful past exactly where they belong, at the foot of my cross, completely and forever covered by my redeeming, limitless grace. You are stepping boldly into a season of unprecedented spiritual maturity, and that holy maturity requires the daily, active, fierce discipline of leaving your burdens entirely and permanently in my capable hands. Whenever a new challenge inevitably arises, you do not have to revert to your old frantic survival tactics. You simply have to look at me, open your empty hands, and trust that the God who perfectly untangled your darkest mess is more than capable of handling whatever comes next. I am giving you a powerful, intimate invitation today to move forward hand in hand with me, completely free from the heavy shadows of your past. You never, ever have to walk through a dark valley alone again. You do not have to blindly navigate the terrifying twists and turns of your future, because I am carefully, lovingly paving the bright path directly in front of you, clearing away every hidden obstacle that stands in the way of your ultimate purpose. Walk in absolute, unshakable confidence of my perfect sovereign timing, knowing with every fiber of your being that I am never early, I am never late, and I am always flawlessly precise in my deliverance. Walk in the overwhelming, comforting assurance of my eternal love, resting your weary head in the magnificent truth that there is absolutely nothing you could ever do to make me love you more, and nothing you could ever do to make me love you less. As we step into this new beginning together, I want you to hold your head high. You are entirely forgiven, completely restored, and beautifully renewed. We are going to build a beautiful, radiant testimony out of the very ashes you honestly thought would permanently bury you, and your healed life will shine as a beacon of profound hope for others who need to know that restoration is possible. The heavy, exhausting lifting is finally done. The agonizing, painful waiting is officially over. The beautiful, vibrant topside of your life's magnificent tapestry is finally ready to be fully revealed to the world. To seal this profound, eternal transformation in your heart, I want you to quiet your mind, open your hands, and pray this simple, heartfelt prayer of final surrender to me. Heavenly Father, I thank you for your endless grace and your perfect, unfailing love. Thank you for seeing my profound exhaustion and for stepping directly into my tangled mess when I was entirely powerless to fix it. Today, I make the final conscious decision to surrender every lingering fear, every heavy anxiety, and every painful burden completely into your capable hands. I ask for your divine wisdom to clearly guide my every step, and I ask for your supernatural strength to sustain me when the old habits of worry try to return. I trust your perfect timing, and I completely trust your sovereign plan for my future. Fill my weary soul with your unshakable peace, and let your radiant joy be my absolute strength. I am completely yours, and I am finally resting securely in your protective arms. In Jesus' name, amen.